a joy to be joined by the one and only Brandon Saller from Atreyu. Brandon, 2020 was a crazy year for everyone and all bands.
Yes,
But of
100%.
all of the bands, it seemed like a very interesting place for Atreyu in particular in 2020. How would you describe the band's 2020 specifically?
Started off fun and busy. We were in Australia, and then from there, we were kind of making a record in early January, starting a record, and then we went through some major shifts. So for us, I mean, the year was a lot of emails and conversations and emotions and a bit of stress and a bit of just kind of adventure, really, you know? So it was honestly what turned out to be a pretty positive year, just because we all kind of came out the other side um, in the light, so to speak. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for
But it was a
real.
lot of soul searching and figuring out for us, internally, and then also at the same time externally, just with the world,
Did it
So
feel like Atreyu were more of a talking point than they'd been in some time? Because you came
yeah.
back and there was the
Mhm.
record, and then it felt like for a while us people that love Atreyu were all in, but
Mhm.
it felt like it was just us in our bubble
Yes.
talking
Mhm.
about Atreyu. Do you
Yeah.
think that 2020 made Atreyu a bigger talking point to the wider world of rock music?
100%. And I think that, for what we think is obvious reasons, but might not be obvious reasons to the general population. I mean, when we came back and we put out Long Live, um, there's that record is, a modern interpretation of our roots and a modern interpretation of our just kind of like angst and wanting to play heavy music. Like
Mm.
I've said this before, but that record to us is like it's like an audible example of five dudes that haven't made heavy music in a few years. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
um, there was no radio singles, there was no like pop songs, there was no, it was just heavy music. And in doing that, that took away a bit of that exposure, you know what I mean, that comes
Mm-hmm.
with radio. Because I mean, over the last decade plus, we've very much kind of become, without even really trying, a radio band. Like
Yeah.
radio kind of embraced us and a long time ago, and so that's become a big part of our exposure as a band. And that wasn't there, so that was a piece that was missing. On top of that, we were kind of just dipping our toes into the fact of like, let's come back, let's not make mistakes we made before, let's not burn ourselves out. So on the touring front, we were touring maybe 2 or 3 weeks at a time. And you don't cover all that much ground in a year or a year and a half when you're only touring for 2 or 3 weeks at a time. So
Mm.
we did some festival runs in Europe, but it was just the festivals. We did maybe the United States once in full, where we really hit all the markets maybe once, and it really just kind of underplayed the whole thing. And it made us realize that that wasn't enough. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like we really just wanted to go fucking full swing and
What was
and
the
jump back
reason for
in.
that? What was the reason
I,
for only doing 2, 3 weeks at a time?
I mean, initially it was, the fact that some of us had families, and just like wanted to kind of like temper that back into our lives. But after the second tour, the first run we did was us and Beartooth, and I know Woven War was on it for a little bit. But like we did that tour, and it was like, oh, that was short, that was easy. And we did one more like short run, I think in Europe, and we had told our management, it was like, yeah, like cool, let's break the rule, like, let's just go, let's go. And they kind of just it was previous management, they just kind of didn't listen. They just
Yeah.
kind of like kept doing the same thing, and we were just kind of going along with the flow, like going with the flow, really.
Mm.
And you know, really, like, for the amount that we didn't do for that record, we're surprised how well it did. But I think when going into make in our wake, we were kind of like wanted to go guns blazing, not only with you know the music, but also this the approach in which we took the touring and took everything. We just
Mm.
dove head first. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it shows. Like the radio treated us very, very kindly, and the streams treated us kindly, and that turned into the tours going really well, and more opportunities opening where you really had we were much more noticeable. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man, for real.
Yeah.
Sorry to cut you off there, Baysal, but there's something that, like, I do my homework on this shit, and I love your band, right? So something that I'm picking up on here that has been a real theme with Atreyu in 2020 is the direction of your music and the heaviness of it. Seems like it's not something that I subscribe to, mate. Like I like make your music the best it can be. If that's being heavy, great. If that's being melodic, great. Whatever is right for your band in the moment at that point in time feels. Just do the best you can. The direction of it is neither here nor there for me as a fan.
You're the best fan ever.
Well, no, I just want good Atreyu music, man. Like, you know. And what is interesting is did that mentality exist within your band? Because it felt like with Alex's departure and everything that was going on in the months leading up to it, to everyone that was paying attention, like it felt like internally there were discussions about the heaviness of Atreyu. Is that accurate?
Yes and no. Yes, in the sense where, I think certain people in the band bring certain elements. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And we, I mean, especially the lineup now, the remaining four of us and our new drummer, are very much in your line of thought that it's like we don't care what it is. It's Atreyu because we're making it.
Yeah.
Good song. A huge lesson John Feldman has taught us is song is king. If Atreyu put out a death metal record that is the best death metal songs you've ever heard, it'd be huge. And then next, if we put out a straight up like K-pop album and learned how to speak Korean and like put out a K-pop album, if it was the best K-pop you've ever heard, people would listen to it.
Yeah, good songs is good songs.
Song is king. So it's one of those things where, I mean, yeah, that's absolutely a discussion of, of creatively where we want to be. We've always kind of had that kind of freedom about us, but I mean, those discussions definitely come into play when you're making new music and figuring out where you want to go with things. You know what I mean?
Sorry, mate, carry on.
No,
you carry on.
It was the same with making our, what will be the next, album, even more so, because I feel like every time we just want to keep pushing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. How much does heaviness mean to you personally? Like, forget everyone else, forget everything else, and forget everything that you know that's coming. What does heavy music mean to you personally? How much does heaviness matter to Atreyu's music to you personally?
It means a lot, but to me, I think my idea of heavy might differ from other people.
Right.
Like heavy to me does not mean screaming. Heavy to me means the feeling and rhythm and guitars. Like I'm the guy that a lot of time brings like chug riffs, you know what I mean? And like breakdown riffs, because I love music that makes me want to punch somebody. You know, and I'm not a violent guy, but that feeling inside.
It's the catharsis.
I like music that does.
I hear you.
And you think about, like I'll reference our song we did with Keizo, Battle Drums. That song is a straight up EDM song with guitars and screaming vocals. It's not the screaming vocals that make it heavy. It's the whole rhythm of the thing. Like we did on our live stream event, we played that song, and it was the most ballistic any of us went the whole show, because you're just like, and it's not because the screaming, it's not because whatever, it's just that rhythm and that chug, that heavy, the guitar, like it's those little musical things. So I think heavy to me is more about feel and music rather than is vocal. But it's definitely important to me. Like I love aggressive music. Now don't get me wrong, I love pop music and I love punk rock and I like rock music and all this stuff. So that's why Atreyu's always sounded the way that we do, because I love those things. But Dan, while Dan's not really into like modern hardcore or metal, he does love the bands he's always loved, like Hatebreed and In Flames,
Yeah.
and and he loves the classics. He loves Maiden and Scorpions and like Def Leppard. He loves the '80s shit. So that's why that's always been in the band. And then you have Travis, who's really into like Deftones and Botch and like the more obscure. So that's why you hear that in the music. You know what I mean? Like it all pieces together.
There's an OC thing as well, Brandon. Like, a bunch of your bands were like the only bands that could play Warped and Ozfest back in the day, and it makes sense on both. There was something in the water at that point in time.
Yeah, I don't understand. I was confused too, because we did Ozfest first, and I was like, okay, cool. Like Ozfest were a metal band, and then I remember the next summer it was like, yo, you guys are doing Main Stage Warped, and I'm like, are you sure? And it was like better than Ozfest. And then the next year we went back to Ozfest again. Like we've done tours where like in the same year, or like in the same, I would say 3 years, we toured with Lamb of God, The Used, and Taking Back Sunday. Like
that'll do
I don't
it.
know why. Yeah. What the fuck? Yeah. It's really that in the beginning, those, I think it's the rock bands and this kind of that scene that gave us a shot, that made it so that we can really kind of blend into whatever we want. Next is reggae. We're just trying to get in the reggae scene.
Absolutely.
Dan wants to play ukulele and smoke weed.
Mate, Atreyu co-headliner with Elephant Man. I'm there.
I'm in, dude. We're going to go on direct support to the Dirty Heads.
Absolutely. so how much is all of this? So, I'll ask about Alex in particular to do with what we're talking about. Because, like, I'm all for the statements that people put out and moving on, right? But it's impossible to ignore Instagram stories when we all follow them. So, what was your reaction to Alex suggesting that Save Us is #fake heavy?
I thought it was hilarious, because I think everyone heard it and then was like, okay. But I think that the four of us were very, very adamant on this whole thing being very, very nice and very, very
You've gone through all this shit together through all of those years.
And no, we didn't. There's no like shitting on people that we want to do. Like we don't want to like. There was not a part of us that wanted like anyone to shit talk us or him. And our whole stance was like, let's just, this is what it is, but we can still lift each other up and make our fans feel good about the fact that like there's no beef, there's no like whatever.
Yeah.
And he did his own thing, and it wasn't exactly the kind of idea of a narrative that we would have liked to put forward. I mean, we've always still to this day been fully positive, and people say stuff about Alex and I'm still like, oh, like the dude's awesome. You should support whatever he does next. Like he's learning guitar, like he's taking interest in different things. And I will still, till I'm blue in the face, say, yeah, support him. You like his voice. You like what he did in Atreyu. He's probably going to make more music. Now you have 2 bands you can listen to. And,
awesome.
But for us, it's just, a lot of people got really butthurt because of the lack of detail we gave. And I feel like we just felt so strongly that in this day and age, like click culture and just like clickbait, like every headline's looking for like, fucking guitar player of Atreyu, like slept with the singer's wife. You know what I mean? Like some weird drama or, you know what I mean? But it's just, we had no interest in that. We just wanted to keep it about the music and keep it positive and let our fans know that like, this is what's happening. We're separating. It is what it is. And, let's just think about the future. And it's harder for a lot of people to accept that because they want the ooey gooey, they want the details,
It's just not as sexy to say, we're Atreyu, we've done a whole bunch of music over the years. We got to a point where one of us wanted to do one side of what we do, the others weren't feeling it, we went our separate ways. From the outside looking in, that doesn't seem as sexy or as like there's no some kind of monster about it.
No, it's not. We didn't film our weeks of group therapy, and
Mm.
and there was. I think people think a lot of it is a lot more quick than the reality. Like, I think that people think that we just like made this decision and posted it on the internet and that was it. But it's like we've been going through this for months and months and months. And
Yeah.
when you're in a business and a relationship and a marriage essentially with someone for 20 years, there's a lot of steps to go through before you can say anything. And we were very much wanting to say really nothing, just be positive and let's be adults and whatever.
Here's a
And
new song. Let that do the talking.
yeah, yeah, and luckily we have so many people that really showing us a lot of love. And I think the fake heavy thing was we don't know where that came. Alex wrote "Save Us" with us. He
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
he wrote probably 7, 8 songs that are on the next record. Like, he
Right.
was a part of the beginning of the album. So like for him to say it's fake heavy, like then he wrote a fake heavy song.
Yeah.
Um,
Did
but,
any of you raise this with him?
No.
Right. Gotcha.
Oh yeah. I mean, it is what it is. It's but
Yeah.
and I think the song came out and I think "Save Us" is one of the heavier songs we've ever written. It is 2.5 minutes of face punch. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
It makes its point emphatically, Brandon. I think.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where I don't. Another view we've had is like, no matter who says what, let's do what we've always done and just let the music talk. You know what I mean? We're just
See,
gonna continue doing that and just let the tunes do all the talking, and people will know what we're all about. They'll know
that's
everything they need to know from the songs that we're gonna put out.
that's just it, right? I've had to talk about that shit because that is what Atreyu's world has been like for the last
Yeah.
couple of months. But you
Yeah.
have now not only released a song, which we'll talk about, new album Direction in a minute, but you've also done these live streams.
Yeah.
Like seeing your band like that, the new iteration of the band after this many years was a bizarre experience. What was
I can
it
imagine.
like? What was it like to have that bizarre experience, but also have it in a streaming setting? Like, it would have been one thing if the world wasn't like on fire at the moment and this
Yeah.
had all happened and you'd gone out and been playing shows. Seeing Atreyu in the flesh for the first time would have been like, whoa, that moment.
Yeah.
Right? But doing
Yeah.
that on a live stream, what was it all like and how did that decision come to be? Because that's a decision that wouldn't have been taken lightly, I know.
For sure. I mean, I think that obviously our options were very limited on how to present, I'll call it 2.0 to the world.
Yeah.
But in doing so, I think, one, you're under a microscope. It's like people can look back and watch that experience as many times as they want for a week or so, and they can really dissect it like a motherfucker. And for us, it was like, okay, we have to sound fucking great, and we have to look fucking great. This has to be the best version of Atreyu that the 5 of us can put together. Like, this is every ounce of effort we have. We rehearsed more for these live stream events than we ever have in 20 years. We were practicing for probably like 3 or 4 days a week for 3 months before these shows happened. Like, it got old. Like, we don't like having band practice. No band does. We don't, like, you know what I mean? It's like we've always been that band that we're like, yeah, get together, play the songs, like knock the dust off and get out on tour.
Yeah.
We tour enough where that matters. But it was like, no, this has to be perfect. And then we'd work on the harmonies, and we'd have just singing practice. Then we'd work on just guitars, make sure the guitar solos were tight, working on all the new songs, this and that and the other, this and that and the other, recording it to it, listening to it, recording to it, listening to it. Like, we fucking hustled. And then it came time for the production. This is another thing that people don't realize. To put on a really good live stream with production and everything, that shit's not cheap. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But we kind of didn't care. It was like, we want to blow this out of the water. And even though they're watching on their TV or their computer, we want this to be the biggest Atreyu show they've ever seen. So we spent so much time in the production. Porter, our bass player, made all of the video content himself.
Love it, man.
Every second of it, we designed the light show, we designed the staging, and like we just put so much into it. And I think because we wanted to make sure it was done that way, we felt good about presenting this for the first time, because we just had to make sure, like, you can't feel the energy and the sweat and the shoulder nudging next to you, so we have to make it enough of a spectacle where it's equally as enjoyable. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
totally.
I think for us too, with a big stage and big lights and all this stuff, it made us get back into that headset, like that headspace. As soon as the first song started, it was like, we're playing a show, and like that's why it was too. Was like we're not just gonna stand there and play songs. Like let's fucking treat this like a gig, and it was great. It felt so incredibly good, very gratifying to finally like play the shows and pull it off. And but yeah, it was a hard decision for sure. But when it's kind of your only decision, you're like, this is our only way we can do this unless we just wait forever. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? Who
yeah.
knows how long? And it's like let's just do it right. You know?
And how has this all affected the writing? Because that's what it's all about, man. Every Atreyu fan out there is waiting for new music, and especially with it being a 2.0 situation, I'm a firm believer that comfortable people don't necessarily make the best art. And
Yeah.
what I mean by that is there are bands that have been brilliant for 30 years and are still putting out records now as good
Yeah.
as their early shit, but those bands aren't traditionally popular bands. They're your Killing Jokes, your Napalm Deaths, your Swans, your bands like
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
right? Being put into an uncomfortable situation again. Question marks over Atreyu. Question marks over you lot. Question marks over your integrity as a heavy band, right? All of these things that have been forced upon Atreyu, not things that you
Yeah.
asked for. Has
Yeah.
it made writing this record bizarrely enjoyable? Because I know I can tell by your facial expressions, being back against the wall is not something that you're entirely against.
No, I fucking love it.
There you
I
go.
I I love having something to prove. I think that to me is like been the fire in my gut for a long time because for 20 plus years we've kind of always been the band that has been majorly written off, where it's like, fuck you, oh, you're a sellout, you're a pop band, I like the old shit. Everyone likes the old shit apparently, even though
Where were you then?
yeah,
I
where
was
were
at
you
those.
then?
I
Yeah.
was at those shows. If everyone who said they liked that shit was there, those shows would
Yeah.
have been a lot bigger.
Exactly. And the thing is funny is like, but now the new version is I like the old shit. Lead Sales was better. And then I'm like, but you
Gotcha.
like Lead Sales, but not. But it doesn't.
Sorry, mate.
It
I just
doesn't
had a
matter.
moment where my heart stopped. Where Lead Sales is the old shit. I am
Yes,
old.
exactly. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But I mean, I feel like I just got freaking sidetracked. What the fuck
Yeah.
was I just saying?
Back against the wall.
Against the wall,
Songwriting. Yeah.
writing. Like I said, Alex was a part of a good bunch of these songs, and you know, I don't whether people will hear it or not. It's usually what it has been is his lyrically, his input, and you know what I mean. And so there's pieces of him there, but we wrote a handful of songs after the fact, just the four of us, and they're the heaviest songs on the record.
Right. I see.
Which I think people think that, and I've had many moments of dealing with this sort of painted picture of myself. Not only have I dealt a lot with the fact that this is all my fault,
Right.
but I've also dealt with the opinion that because I'm now in front, we're going to be a pop band.
Right.
Uh,
Just full on octane tunes. Nothing
yeah,
else.
yeah, and not we're just going to go full. We're going to do dance routines.
Right. Got ya.
Full, yeah. But you know, so those two concepts are hilarious to me because, like, the screaming is very much still there. It's just done by Porter now, which you can hear that on Lead Sales and Long Live and Death Grip. He screams on all those albums. And then I'm screaming a good bit, but I'm also singing. But like the first song we wrote in the studio, just the four of us, was a song called Underrated that we played on the live stream. It's a fucking ripper. It is so heavy and so aggressive and fast. And I think the people that think they're gonna get pop out of us, don't get me wrong. There's those moments.
Yeah,
But, like,
of course.
There's those songs, but like people that think that it's not gonna be there are gonna chuckle to themselves, because, I mean, every band's like, oh, my new record's the favorite. It's fucking the best shit we've ever written. But it's interesting and it's different and it takes crazy turns and it's fucking aggressive, bro. Like the new shit is very, very aggressive and very, very like poignantly fucking on fire. You know,
Yeah.
we all had shit to say and we had shit that we wanted to put forward. You know what I mean? And our whole concept when we first started making this album was I was like, I want to take all of our strong suits and I want to crank them up even higher. I want the pop to be more pop. I want the heavy to be more heavy. I want the fucking aggressive songs to be more aggressive. Like I want to take it all and crank it all up. And that's what we kind of came up with. So the writing for us has still felt really, really good. And it felt good for us too, because there's obviously that thing where musically our band has always been, the music has always been written by the four of us. You know what I mean? It's always myself and Dan, and then with Porter and Travis being like our masterful editors. You know what I mean? And it's been a collaborative thing with the four of us for music. So we knew we could handle that. But then when it came to like, okay, all the lyrics are going to be on us, because melody's always been a big part. Myself and Dan and Alex was involved too, but melody's been more heavy-handed with us. And it's like, cool. Lyrics though, like that was always Alex's forte. And he's a beautiful lyricist. And this was like, cool, we got to handle these lyrics. And then just coming up with some of the shit we did, all very, very pleased and very happy about it. So, I mean, I like I said, I can jabber my jaw for fucking 10 hours, but I think that the music will say everything that I can, you know?
Yeah. Last question then, when pertaining to new Atreyu, before I start talking about, my God, how are you? The fact that the song that you've released is called Underrated. Now, Atreyu have kind of always had, like, you're nice blokes, right? There's rightly a reputation for Atreyu being nice, right?
Yeah.
Underrated is showing your teeth, right? Not only having like more heaviness just coming up naturally in your songwriting. Underrated is a statement.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
It absolutely is. And it comes from like that proving ground. You know what I mean? I think that it's in all of our hearts that at some point you want to get that recognition. You know what I mean? As a band, and you want to be the band that like bands talk about, and that like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Like, oh, Atreyu were the real deal. And there are we've gotten praise from some bands and on tour with bands. Like I think bands that have toured with us have been very kind and like forthcoming about their opinion of us. But it's never been cool to praise our band. It's never been cool for press. It's never been cool for bands. It's never been cool for fans. Like we have a lot of fans. Our band does well, but like, you know it if you came to our shows, but you might not know it by just like hearing kids talk on the internet. You know what I mean? Which has always been a mystery to us, because I'm always surprised at our tours, because it's like, okay, streams are good, radio's good. Like I hear them talking, but I don't hear them screaming like you would, you know, an Avenged Sevenfold, or even like a Bullet, or, you know, in the pop world, like a Youngblood or something. Like you never like hear it screaming from the rooftops. But then
why?
You go to our shows, you're like, I don't know. Maybe because we're nice.
What's your hunch?
I think it's because we're nice. It brings me back to the announcement of the new lineup. Like, we're not dramatic. We're not like, no one's like going to jail or getting in bar fights or like saying quippy shit on the internet. Like, the biggest thing that got reacted to was fucking Alex saying that we invented metalcore.
Yes, that's true. That's fucking true. That's 100% true. You're right. I'd make you 100% right on that.
Yeah. He said something on purpose because we like it would
fuck yeah. Get him talking. Yeah, I don't blame him.
It worked. You have to be, you know,
that sucks.
Controversial. You have to be controversial.
Because your band remind me of what, like, I'm going to use the word metalcore just because, right? You remind me of, like, Jimmy Eat World, right? Mm-hmm. Like, for that world, in that it's just good songs, man. Like, do we know anything particularly about the members of Jimmy Eat World? Not that much, right?
Yeah.
Do we know the songs? Yeah. If I DJ a Jimmy Eat World song or an Atreyu song anywhere I go, place goes ballistic. Yeah. So I understand
we just don't have the criminal record.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, I hear you. I
And it's
hear
funny
you.
because it's like you think it like the modern day rock star, you know, and it's like we do things that are like that. We fucking go out and we party, and I'm a big drinker, you
Yeah.
know, like I like to go to the desert and do drugs with my friends, you know, but
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
you just never fucking hear about it.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, that's fun. And why should that matter? What the fuck should that matter to getting to people to use their ears on a song? Honestly, Brandon, we could
yeah,
talk about this for hours, but I'm gonna
exactly.
end this
Yeah.
chat by asking, how are you, man? You are currently in recovery. In
I,
recovery?
yeah, I am in multiple recovery. Yeah,
Yeah,
2020 was an interesting year, and it ended on a real cool note for me. I've been very safe and very compliant and very focused on the safety of my family and myself the
yeah,
entire year. And then somehow at the end of the year, I got COVID. So it was right before Christmas. So luckily, my mom came into town for Christmas. She hasn't been here in forever.
yeah.
Everyone was tested negative. It was fine. She lives in the middle of fucking nowhere in Washington, so she was negative. Everything's good. Christmas was going to be very very small, like just like 4 people. So she came out the day after she got here. I tested positive,
Oh, for fuck's
um,
sake.
and so I was isolated in our bedroom for 2 weeks. On Christmas and Christmas Eve and stuff, I would just hang out on our patio, like with behind the glass door, and just like kind of watch, um,
That's
which
some
was
sad shit.
horribly
That needs
stressful.
some melancholy piano behind it,
Yeah,
man.
straight up. I need that the Instagram thing where the leaves fall and the piano plays. Yeah, it
Totally.
was like that. It was like that. But so I did that, and then finally I got a negative test. So after being stuck in my bedroom for 2 weeks, my wife's dad has a house in Northern California, right on the beach, that he Airbnbs. So we're like, let's go to the Cambria house and just to get the fuck out of
Yeah,
this.
of
I
course.
need to see something.
Yep.
So we went up there. We were there for maybe 3 hours, and I was downstairs cooking. I came back upstairs, and I had a glass in my hand and a plate of like sausages, and that I had grilled. And I went to step over the baby gate on the top of the stairs, which, one, fuck baby gates. Two,
Yeah.
don't ever step over the baby gate. I tripped. I caught my foot, tripped, fell into the kitchen onto the glass that broke into my arm and filleted me like a fucking fish. It was horrifying because I was bleeding an insane amount. My 4-year-old came in the kitchen because she heard commotion, and
Oh,
then
great.
stepped in the glass, cut her foot.
Oh, mate.
So I got a ambulance ride. The funniest thing was she came in the kitchen and said, "Oh, Daddy spilled your juice." She thought it was wine,
Oh,
which I'm thankful for.
yeah, thank God. Yeah.
So I got an ambulance ride to the hospital. My wife drove her to the hospital. She got 6 stitches. I had emergency surgery on my arm. I get my stitches out today though. So
God, congrats, Brandon.
yeah, but they put me back together, and it was quite an ordeal. But that's been the second wave of recovery, and I got a numb pinky, and my hand feels like it's asleep, but they say that I'll be fine at some point.
Well, here's to that, and here's to that getting here sooner rather than later. Is the album finished, recorded, done?
It's done and dusted. Yeah, we're sitting on our hands at this point.
2020, 2021? Or waiting for touring?
No, we're gonna do 2021. I think that we're all hopeful and just putting out that energy into the world that by the end of 2021 we'll be playing some shows. Like I know we
Amen.
have like Aftershock
Amen.
booked and a couple festivals, so we're hoping. But I definitely agree with the like waiting to tour thing. I've had these conversations a lot with like the Avenged guys and just a lot of other bands that I'm friends with, and I think the reality is this isn't going to be our last album. There's going to be much more from us, and I think we have a lot more inspiration. Like we've all had the discussion that if we wanted to go in and make another album like tomorrow, we could do that. Like we have that in our guts to do that right now, and I feel like we're kind of just like people. Let's just give our fans something. Like our streams are better than they've ever been. Um, we've been doing really cool stuff with our merchandise and like limited drops and making merch really fun. That's been really better than it's ever been for us. So there's these elements. The thing that's missing is live shows, but it's like, just because we can't play live doesn't mean that our fans aren't going to consume and enjoy the art.
Fuck yeah.
And it's like, oh, well, you lose that steam. You know, you put out a record, then wait 6 months to go play a show. That like new record smell's gone, and it's not as exciting. And it's like, yeah, I do agree with that, but at the same time, they're still going to be hearing a lot of those songs for the first time, and it's just kind of like, let's just go. Like, we're hoping that it rolls out, and we can still, you know, play some shows and start doing things at some capacity soon after the record comes out. You know what I mean?
Well, fingers crossed for a brilliant 2021 for yourself and for all of us. Thank you for your time today, Brandon.
Appreciate it, man. Always good to talk to you.